Fast signal, full receipts. Let's lock in. This week, AI stopped looking like a chatbot race and started looking like a deployment race. OpenAI put personal finance inside ChatGPT, brought Codex to mobile, launched a new deployment company, and published a security response to a real software supply chain attack. Anthropic went after small businesses, giant consulting workflows, and global health with Claude. Google pushed Gemini Intelligence deeper into Android, turning the phone itself into a more proactive agent surface. NVIDIA and SAP moved agent security into enterprise systems of record, while NVIDIA and Ineffable Intelligence pointed at the next frontier. Reinforcement learning systems that learn from experience, not just from human text. And on the open model side, IBM dropped new Granite multilingual embedding models that are small, Apache 2.0, long context, and built for production RAG across more than 200 languages. So the theme of this week is simple. AI agents are leaving the demo tab. They are moving into money, phones, code bases, finance teams, health programs, SAP workflows, and local machines. If you want AI coverage with receipts instead of recycled hype, subscribe to UGTP, drop the story you want next in the comments, and keep the receipts on screen because every major claim in this video is sourced. Let's start with the most sensitive product story of the week. OpenAI's new personal finance experience in ChatGPT. On May 15th, OpenAI released a preview for ChatGPT Pro users in the United States that lets users securely connect financial accounts, view a dashboard, and ask ChatGPT questions grounded in their financial context. This is not just ask a chatbot how to budget. OpenAI says users can connect accounts through Plaid, with Intuit support coming soon, and ChatGPT can access balances, transactions, investments, and liabilities for finance conversations. That matters because it changes the shape of the product. ChatGPT is no longer only answering general questions. It is becoming a personal operating layer over private data. OpenAI says the experience supports more than 12,000 financial institutions at launch for US Pro users on web and iOS. The company also says more than 200 million people come to ChatGPT every month for budgeting, investment questions, planning, and other money-related help. That number is the why now. People were already asking ChatGPT about money. The new version adds account context, dashboards, and finance-specific memory so the assistant can connect the dots across spending, goals, subscriptions, debt, and investments. But the tension is obvious. Finance data is some of the most sensitive consumer data you can hand to an AI system. OpenAI says users remain in control. ChatGPT cannot see full account numbers, cannot make changes to accounts. Users can disconnect accounts. Synced account data is deleted from OpenAI systems within 30 days after disconnecting, and temporary chats will not access connected financial accounts. The model side is also interesting. OpenAI says conversations with connected financial accounts default to GPT 5.5 thinking, and that GPT 5.5 Pro had the best overall performance on OpenAI's internal personal finance benchmark. The published benchmark scores are 79 out of 100 for GPT 5.5 thinking and 82.5 out of 100 for GPT 5.5 Pro. That is a useful receipt, but also a place to stay sober. It is an internal benchmark, so treat it as OpenAI's measured claim, not independent proof that ChatGPT should replace a financial advisor. And OpenAI explicitly says ChatGPT can help users stay informed, but it is not a replacement for professional financial advice. So yes, the future is here. It can categorize your subscriptions. It still cannot be blamed for your midnight online shopping. The bigger implication is that ChatGPT is becoming a trust product. If OpenAI can make finance work, the same pattern can expand into healthcare paperwork, insurance, taxes, travel, procurement, and any workflow where users want an assistant that understands their actual situation. Next, Codex is coming to the ChatGPT mobile app. OpenAI announced on May 14th that Codex is now in preview in the ChatGPT mobile app, so users can stay connected to work happening across laptops, dev boxes, or remote environments. This is one of those product updates that sounds small until you think about how agents actually work. If an AI coding agent is doing a 2-hour investigation, the human does not want to stare at a terminal for 2 hours. The human wants to step in when judgment is needed, answer a question, approve a command, review a diff, change direction, or add missing context. OpenAI says more than 4 million people now use Codex every week, and the mobile app can show live state from a connected machine, including active threads, approvals, plugins, project context, screenshots, terminal output, diffs, test results, and approvals. The important architecture detail is that files, credentials, permissions, and local setup stay on the machine where Codex is operating. Updates flow back to the phone in real time through a secure relay layer that keeps trusted machines reachable across devices without directly exposing them to the public internet. That is the practical version of agent collaboration. The phone is not replacing the dev machine. It is becoming the control surface. OpenAI also says remote SSH is generally available, so the desktop app can connect into managed remote environments, and hooks are generally available for scanning prompts, running validators, logging conversations, creating memories, or customizing Codex behavior by repo and directory. Programmatic access tokens are available for enterprise and business plans, and OpenAI says HIPAA-compliant use of Codex in local environments is supported for eligible ChatGPT enterprise workspaces. That is not consumer fluff. That is enterprise agent plumbing. The coding agent is now the kind of coworker who pings you while you are waiting for coffee. Honestly, horrifying and useful is a very 2026 combination. The significance is that OpenAI is building for long-running work. Codex is not only write a function. It is investigate, test, ask, wait, resume, and ship. Now we need to talk about the less shiny but very important OpenAI story, the Tanstack NPM supply chain attack response. On May 13th, OpenAI said it identified a security issue involving a common open-source library, Tanstack NPM, as part of a broader attack known as Mini-Shy-Hewlett. OpenAI says it found no evidence that OpenAI user data was accessed, no evidence that production systems or intellectual property were compromised, and no evidence that OpenAI software was altered. But the details are still serious. OpenAI says 2 employee devices in its corporate environment were impacted. It observed activity consistent with malware behavior, including unauthorized access and credential-focused exfiltration activity, in a limited subset of internal source code repositories. OpenAI says only limited credential material was successfully exfiltrated from those repositories, and no other information or code was impacted. The key user action is for macOS apps. OpenAI says it is updating security certificates, and macOS users need to update OpenAI apps by June 12, 2026. The affected products include ChatGPT Desktop, Codex app, Codex CLI, and Atlas. OpenAI also says the impacted source code repositories included signing certificates for products across iOS, macOS, Windows, and Android, and that apps are being re-signed and released with new certificates as a precaution. The company says it has found no evidence of malicious software being signed with OpenAI certificates, and no evidence of compromise or risk to existing software installations. This story matters because it shows the ugly side of AI tooling adoption. The more developers depend on NPM packages, package managers, CI pipelines, credentials, plugins, agents, and automation, the more the software supply chain becomes a high-value target. OpenAI says the incident reflects a broader shift. Attackers increasingly target shared dependencies and development tooling rather than a single company. That is the security story of agentic AI. If agents can write code, install packages, run tools, and touch credentials, then dependency provenance and sandboxing become as important as model quality. The fourth OpenAI story is Strategy, the OpenAI deployment company. On May 11th, OpenAI announced a new company designed to help organizations build and deploy AI systems around their most important work. OpenAI also said it agreed to acquire Tomorrow, an applied AI consulting and engineering firm, bringing about 150 forward-deployed engineers and deployment specialists into the OpenAI deployment company from day one. This is OpenAI moving closer to a Palantir-style deployment model. Embed engineers inside complex organizations, identify high-value workflows, connect models to data and tools, and build production systems instead of selling access and hoping the customer figures it out. OpenAI says the deployment company is majority-owned and controlled by OpenAI, launches with more than $4 billion of initial investment, and is a committed partnership with 19 global investment firms, consultancies, and system integrators. The partnership is led by TPG, with Advent, Bain Capital, and Brookfield as co-lead founding partners. OpenAI also lists partners including B Capital, BBVA, Emergence Capital, Goanna, Goldman Sachs, SoftBank Corp., Warburg Pincus, WCS, Bain & Company, Capgemini, and McKinsey & Company. OpenAI says more than 1 million businesses have adopted its products and APIs, and the next stage of enterprise AI will be defined by real-world deployment. That is the big strategic point. Frontier model releases get the headlines. Deployment decides who captures value. In other words, the model got smart enough, and now the expensive part is getting it past procurement, compliance, and the spreadsheet someone named Final V9. The implication for the AI race is huge. Labs are no longer just model labs. They are becoming infrastructure companies, consulting ecosystems, product platforms, and workflow redesign shops. Now jump to Google. On May 12th, Google announced Gemini Intelligence for Android, describing Android's transition from an operating system into an intelligence system. Google says Gemini Intelligence features will roll out in waves starting with the latest Samsung Galaxy and Google Pixel phones this summer, with broader availability across Android devices including watches, cars, glasses, and laptops later in the year. The main idea is proactive device-level help. Google says Gemini Intelligence can automate multi-step tasks across apps, use screen or image context, summarize content in Chrome, help compare information, fill complex forms, turn spoken thoughts into polished messages through Rambler, and create custom widgets with simple language. The strongest examples are cross-app tasks. Google says a user could ask Gemini to find a class syllabus in Gmail and put the required books into a cart, or take a photo of a travel brochure and ask Gemini to find a similar tour on Expedia for a group of 6. Google says the user remains in control. Gemini acts only on command, stops when the task is complete, and leaves final confirmation to the user. That is the phone agent version of the same story we saw with Codex. The agent does the logistics. The human approves. Google is also framing this as a multi-device surface. If Gemini Intelligence becomes part of phones, watches, cars, glasses, laptops, and Chrome, then the agent does not live in one app. It lives across the user environment. This is Google's advantage: distribution. OpenAI has ChatGPT. Google has Android, Chrome, Gmail, Search, Workspace, Maps, Photos, YouTube, and device partners. The question is whether Google can make all that intelligence feel useful without making users feel watched, interrupted, or trapped in confirmations. Anthropic's most practical product story this week is Claude for small business. On May 13th, Anthropic launched Claude for small business, a package of connectors and ready-to-run workflows that put Claude inside the tools small businesses already use. Anthropic says small businesses account for 44% of U.S. GDP and employ nearly half of the private sector workforce, but their AI adoption has lagged behind large enterprises. Claude for small business runs inside Claude Cowork and connects to tools including Intuit QuickBooks, PayPal, HubSpot, Canva, DocuSign, Google Workspace, and Microsoft 365. Anthropic says it ships with 15 ready-to-run agentic workflows across finance, operations, sales, marketing, HR, and customer service, plus 15 skills built around repeatable tasks that slow owners down. The examples are very grounded. Plan payroll, close the month, surface business insights, run a sales campaign, chase invoices, analyze margins, prep tax season, review contracts, triage leads, and build content strategy. The most important product line is this: Claude does the work, and the business owner approves before anything sends, posts, or pays. That is the control model for agent adoption. Small businesses do not need philosophical autonomy. They need time back, fewer admin mistakes, and approval gates before money moves. This also shows Anthropic's strategy: specialize Claude into work surfaces. Not just ask Claude. More like connect Claude to QuickBooks, HubSpot, Canva, PayPal, and DocuSign. then let it run bounded workflows. The AI is not replacing the owner. It is replacing the Sunday night invoice panic. That one can go. Anthropic also announced a much bigger enterprise deployment story with PwC on May 14th. Anthropic and PwC said they are expanding their strategic alliance, with PwC rolling out Claude Code and Cowork starting with U.S. teams and expanding toward a global workforce of hundreds of thousands of professionals. The companies are also establishing a joint center of excellence and a program to train and certify 30,000 PwC professionals on Claude. The collaboration focuses on agentic technology build, AI-native deal-making, and reinvention of enterprise functions. PwC is also launching an office of the CFO Finance Business Group built on Claude as the first standalone business unit anchored in Anthropic's technology. Anthropic says Claude is already running in production across professional sports operations, insurance underwriting, mainframe modernization, HR transformation, and cybersecurity, cutting delivery times by up to 70%. The most concrete example, Anthropic says insurance underwriting cycles compressed from 10 weeks to 10 days. This is where the story gets very real. AI adoption is not only about individual productivity. It is about redesigning professional services, regulated workflows, and enterprise functions where accuracy and auditability matter. Anthropic's second May 14th announcement went in a different direction: public benefit deployment. Anthropic announced a $200 million partnership with the Gates Foundation, combining grant funding, Claude usage credits, and technical support over the next 4 years. The focus areas are global health, life sciences, education, and economic mobility. Anthropic says the largest part of the partnership will focus on health outcomes in low and middle-income countries, where around 4.6 billion people lack access to essential health services. The work includes connectors, benchmarks, and evaluation frameworks for healthcare tasks, health ministry use cases around workforce deployment, supply chain management, and outbreak detection, and research support for high-burden and neglected diseases. This story matters because it is a deployment counterweight. The same week that AI companies are going deeper into finance, enterprise consulting, and business automation, Anthropic is also trying to show that frontier AI can be pointed at public goods where markets alone may not invest. Now let's talk about agent security at the enterprise application layer. On May 12th, NVIDIA announced an expanded collaboration with SAP to help enterprises run specialized agents with security and governance controls. SAP is embedding NVIDIA OpenShell, an open-source runtime for securely developing and deploying autonomous AI agents, into the SAP Business AI platform. SAP engineers are also co-developing OpenShell with NVIDIA and contributing back to the open-source project. The key technical claim is that OpenShell provides isolated execution environments, policy enforcement at the file system and network layers, and infrastructure-level containment when agent logic fails. Within SAP Business AI platform, OpenShell becomes the runtime security layer for SAP AI agents, including custom agents built in Joule Studio. This is important because SAP sits inside finance, procurement, supply chain, and manufacturing systems where agent mistakes can be expensive. NVIDIA's framing is exactly right. an agent that can touch systems of record, cross application boundaries, and operate without review at every step needs boundaries, policy enforcement, and an audit trail before it becomes production work. The simple version is this: the agent needs a cage, a rulebook, and a receipt trail. NVIDIA says OpenShell asks whether an agent action can safely execute, while the Joule Studio runtime asks whether the action should happen at all. Together, they close a gap that application layer security alone cannot. This is one of the most important enterprise AI stories of the week because it answers a practical objection. Companies are interested in agents. They are not interested in giving an autonomous system unlimited access to their financial and supply chain backbone. Nobody wants an AI agent freestyling in procurement. That is how you accidentally buy 80,000 chairs. NVIDIA's other big May 13th story points beyond current chatbots and enterprise agents. NVIDIA announced an engineering-level collaboration with Ineffable Intelligence, the London AI lab founded by AlphaGo architect David Silver. The focus is reinforcement learning infrastructure for systems that learn continuously from experience. NVIDIA quotes Jensen Huang saying the next frontier of AI is superlearners that learn continuously from experience. David Silver frames the challenge as moving beyond systems that know what humans already know towards systems that discover new knowledge for themselves. The technical difference is important. Pre-training flows through a fixed dataset of human data. Reinforcement learning workloads generate data on the fly. Act, observe, score, update, repeat. NVIDIA says that puts pressure on interconnect, memory bandwidth, and serving in ways that pre-training does not, and may require new model architectures and training algorithms. The collaboration starts on NVIDIA Grace Blackwell and will be among the first to explore the upcoming NVIDIA Vera Rubin platform. This is the research infrastructure story. If the next big jump comes from agents learning in simulated or real environments, then the compute stack has to support constant feedback loops, not just giant one-way pre-training runs. This also connects to robotics, science, games, coding agents, and automated research. A model that only imitates human data is limited by what humans already wrote down. A system that can explore, test, fail, and learn may discover strategies that were never in the training set. That is the AlphaGo lesson moving into the broader AI stack. NVIDIA also published a May 13th story about Hermes, an open-source local agent from Noose Research, running on NVIDIA RTX PCs, RTX Pro workstations, and DGX Spark. NVIDIA says Hermes is provider and model agnostic, optimized for always-on local use, and built around reliability and self-improvement. The standout claims are self-evolving skills, contain subagents, curated and stress-tested skills, and better results from orchestration rather than a thin wrapper. NVIDIA also highlights Qwen 3.6 models as ideal for local agents, saying the Qwen 3.635B model runs on roughly 20 gigabytes of memory while surpassing 120B parameter models, and Qwen 3.627B matches the accuracy of 400B parameter models like Qwen 3.5 397B while being 1/16 the size. Treat those as NVIDIA's performance claims, not independent benchmark proof. But the direction is important. Local agents are becoming plausible because smaller open-weight models are getting strong enough, and local hardware is being marketed for continuous agent workloads. The bigger story is privacy and latency. If an agent can run on your machine, access project context, coordinate subagents, and improve skills over time, it becomes a different category from a cloud chatbot. Finally, the open model infrastructure story of the week. IBM Granite embedding multilingual R2 on Hugging Face. On May 14th, IBM Granite published two new Apache 2.0 multilingual embedding models, a 311M parameter full-size model and a 97M parameter compact model. Both support more than 200 languages, enhanced retrieval quality for 52 languages, programming code retrieval across 9 programming languages, and context lengths up to 32,768 tokens. The practical reason this matters is RAG. If AI systems are going to work across global companies, government services, legal documents, technical manuals, support centers, and multilingual knowledge bases, the retrieval layer cannot be English only in short context. IBM says the 97M model scores 60.3 on MTB multilingual retrieval, which it describes as the highest retrieval score it found for any open multilingual embedding model under 100M parameters. The 311M model scores 65.2 on the same benchmark and is ranked number 2 among open models under 500M parameters in IBM's comparison. This is not the flashiest story, but it may be one of the most buildable. A small, permissively licensed, multilingual embedding model can quietly improve a lot of AI products. So what actually changed this week? First, AI moved deeper into high-trust personal data. ChatGPT Personal Finance is a preview, but it is a clear signal that assistants are moving toward private, connected, context-rich workflows. Second, coding agents move toward continuous human collaboration. Codex on mobile means the human can steer long-running work without sitting at the machine. Third, supply chain security became part of the AI story. OpenAI's TanStack response is a reminder that agents, package managers, credentials, and CI pipelines are now part of the attack surface. Fourth, deployment became the center of the enterprise race. OpenAI launched a deployment company. Anthropic scaled with PwC. Claude for small business turned connectors into bounded workflows. SAP and NVIDIA focused on runtime containment. Fifth, the phone is becoming an agent surface. Google's Gemini Intelligence announcement is Android moving from app launcher to proactive assistant layer. Sixth, the next research frontier may be experience-based learning. NVIDIA and Ineffable are building reinforcement learning infrastructure for systems that act, observe, score, and update continuously. And seventh, the OpenStack keeps getting more useful in the places products actually need. Local agents, smaller models, multilingual retrieval, long context embeddings, and CPU-friendly deployment. The through line is clear. The winning AI products are not just smarter. They are connected, bounded, auditable, deployable, and close to real workflows. To understand why this week matters, separate the headlines from the bets underneath them. Bet number 1. Users will trust AI with sensitive context if the product gives them control. Bet number 2. Agents need persistent collaboration, not one-shot prompting. Bet number 3. Deployment will matter as much as model quality. Bet number 4. Agents need boundaries before enterprises let them act. Bet number 5. The next model frontier may be learning from experience. The reason this week felt different is that almost every major story had the same shape. It was not here is a new chatbot. It was here is AI connected to a domain. Finance, Code, Android, QuickBooks, PayPal, HubSpot, Canva, DocuSign, PwC, SAP, Healthcare, Education, Agriculture, Local workstations, vector databases. That is the shift. The first wave of AI made people ask, what can this model say? The second wave makes people ask, what can this system do? With what data? Under what rules? And who approves the result? That is a much more serious question. It is also why the week has two moods at once. On one hand, the products are getting more useful. On the other hand, the stakes are higher. If the AI has your transactions, the privacy design matters. If the AI can run code, the sandbox matters. If the AI can touch procurement, audit logs matter. If the AI is used in healthcare or education, evaluation and local context matter. That is the real story. Usefulness and risk are increasing together. The winners will not be the companies that pretend risk is gone. The winners will be the companies that make the useful version feel controlled, inspectable, reversible, and worth trusting. Here is what I would watch next. Watch whether OpenAI expands the finance preview beyond pro users, and whether Intuit support arrives quickly. If Intuit is deeply integrated, ChatGPT Finance could become a tax, credit, and financial planning surface, not just a dashboard. Watch how Codex Mobile handles Real developer workflows. The key question is not whether it can show a diff on a phone. The question is whether mobile approvals actually make long-running agent work feel less brittle. Watch whether macOS users update OpenAI apps before June 12th. Security stories often fade quickly, but certificate rotation and app trust are very practical. Watch OpenAI's deployment company customer announcements. The interesting part will be whether it proves measurable results outside early partners and whether the forward-deployed engineer model scales. Watch Gemini Intelligence rollout timing. Google has the distribution advantage, but the experience has to feel helpful without being annoying. Watch Claude for small business adoption. Small businesses are a brutal product test because owners do not have time for abstract AI demos. If it saves time on payroll, invoices, month close, and campaigns, it has a shot. Watch Anthropic and PwC's Office of the CFO work. Finance is a high-leverage, high-trust enterprise function, and it will tell us a lot about where Claude can sit inside regulated workflows. Watch the Gates partnership for public releases of benchmarks, datasets, and knowledge graphs. The public goods promise matters most when the outputs can actually be inspected and reused. Watch OpenShell. Agent runtimes and policy layers are going to become a serious category if enterprises move from assistant pilots to autonomous workflows. And watch the reinforcement learning infrastructure story. If experience-based learning becomes a larger part of frontier model training, the hardware, networking, simulation, and evaluation stacks will all change around it. So that is the week. Personal finance in ChatGPT, Codex in your pocket, OpenAI building a deployment arm, Anthropic pushing Claude into small businesses and PwC workflows, Google turning Android into an intelligence system, NVIDIA and SAP building the trust layer for specialized agents, and IBM shipping open embeddings that make multilingual RAG more practical. The AI race is no longer only about who wins the benchmark chart. It is about who can put useful agents into the messy places where money, code, compliance, health, documents, devices, and daily work actually live. Fast signal, full receipts. Let's lock in. If this helped, subscribe to UGTP, like the video, and comment with the biggest story of the week. Personal AI finance, mobile coding agents, enterprise deployment, Android Gemini, or agent security. For UGTP, this has been the OpenClaw Weekly AI Intelligence Desk.